All right, looks like we're live. Thank you everyone for joining. We're going to just jump right into it. But just to give you a little bit of a context, if you're joining for the first time today or don't know what this is about, this is basically this video is to address any questions or concerns or points of confusion using the tool, specific workflows in Gravity Sketch. I'm here to answer any questions related to the tool. So if you have any, if you're wondering where to find something or we're unclear on how to use a specific feature, I'm here to clarify that for you, as well as expand on that, maybe propose a few different ways to do things. I'll probably jump in and just start addressing some things that I've already seen in the community, and then we can just get the ball rolling from there. I think once people start asking more questions, it'll just snowball. So, but yeah, thank you very much for joining. And this is just a really a session to be to provide information and clarify some things for all of you. We want to do more of these Ask Me Anythings. Won't be every week, but we want to periodically do them just to give you a chance to directly talk and ask questions, which we addressed in normal live content anyway. But yeah, this is just to make room for that. We're not making anything specific today, so it's great to meet all of you. My name is Jaron Dorman. I'm the community manager at Gravity Sketch, and I basically connect with all of you out there and share your content, help make training content as well. And yeah, it's an honor to interact with all of you. So put your questions in the chat, and I will be observing that and monitoring that as I go through and answer any questions that you might have. And with that, we'll just get started. We already got a question, which is great, from Sarah Path. Can I use it as a CAD? Can I use a CAD to precisely model something like an Oculus Quest controller or split keyboard? Great question. We get a lot of questions around this, like precision and measuring and things like that. So we can dive into a little bit like that. So let me just put my headset on here. As you can see, I've already got Gravity Sketch loaded up. So let's just take a look at how we can approach something like that. So let me get my controllers. All right. So you're talking about precision, and there's a number of ways. So one of the things is disclaimer I'll say is Gravity Sketch is not meant to be a CAD tool, and it was never meant to be. It's meant to be a 3D sketch tool, and you can be really loose, really expressive with your designs, and just get something down in 3D space, or you can get a little bit more refined with it and really define something, but it's not going to be, say, ready for like a tooling for a mold or something. You'll still do that most likely in another program like SolidWorks or Rhino or Fusion, to get specific radii and things around your models. But let me just run through a few things here. One of the things we do have, in order to have some sort of understanding of measuring and scale, is we have the measuring tape. So what this tool belt is a tool belt, and you can activate the tool belt by going to the star icon here, and you basically just need to turn on tool belt, and then you have access to it. So this is where you'll find beta features, is under the star here. But essentially, you grab your grip trigger and you swipe left, or you can swipe right, and you go ahead and grab your measuring tape, and then you just click with your index finger trigger, and point to point, it will tell you a measurement of how long you drew that, and you can get an idea of how long something is. So the length of this in a straight line is about 2.5 feet, this says. So if we go over here to settings, we can change the units to metric as well. So if we go to settings, preferences, readout unit, we change it just by toggling this. You can toggle it from imperial to metric. So that's a really useful tool. You can also turn on snap as well. So it'll snap, let's see, to 4, to 5, to 6, to 7, to 8. So it'll snap by inches as well. Turn that on. Basically, how you turn that on is you click the, I believe in the Oculus controllers, it is the, looking under my mask, the A button. So if you click the A button, it'll go white and gray. White means it's on, and then you have that snap feature on. So it's easier to snap to specific measurements. Now that is measuring things. I find that really to be a useful way of understanding specifically how long something is. So you can even get down into a, you know, sort of a revolved object. And maybe we give it a little bit of a crease here. And say this is like some sort of opening that we want to have to be a specific diameter. We can get our measuring. And you kind of have to guess the center of it. But as long as you're crossing through here, you can see the axis of the that was drawn, the revolve was drawn on. So as long as you're crossing through that, you're probably getting it directly. You're getting it directly across. And so we're just gonna tap it there. So it looks like it's about a 7.4 inch diameter. And then we can like additionally measure the outer diameter of this crease. So this gives you a general idea of what the diameter is. And so you're able to measure things in Gravity Sketch, which is really helpful. Also for precision, we have also had a lot of questions on how to move things in precision. So let me just like lock this to an axis. If you get your axis for the revolve tool close enough to the scene axes, it'll actually snap to those. So you can go in this view. If I squeeze the trigger all the way, it's free, but if I just lightly squeeze and move it close, it'll snap to it, which is really, really helpful. So we can do that. I'm going to turn on mirror just for effect as well. But, you know, we have ways of moving things in precision. So I'm just going to move this here. So if we want to move this more specifically, we can either align our controllers and move it along an axis. So we just line them up like this, and we have to touch an object. So when you're touching the object, then you will see that axis appear. So right now I'm touching the object. If I move my left controller down, you can see we now have the axes appearing. If I tilt this way, now we can move it this axis. But another way we can do that is actually using the move tool. So we can touch any location on an object, squeeze the index finger trigger, and then we can click the axis that we want to move it on, move it on this axis. And then additionally, we have the plane as well. So we can move it all along this plane. So it'll snap just to the, I believe that might be the X-plane, X-axis. And then we also have a rotation mode. So we have, if we swipe right on the joystick here, so if I get this up to the camera, I'm using the Oculus controllers. So if we swipe right on the joystick, we can rotate things around a point. Now, you might be wondering, you know, can I pick the point that you rotate around? Yes, but the point has to be on the object, so it can't be in space. So I can't just click here in space and then rotate around that point. If you want to do that, there's a little bit of a trick to do that. If we go to maybe like a stroke or something, we just make a little dot. Say I want it to rotate around this point. What we can do is we can select those two together. We can group them. So now they're the same object, or they're, you know, grouped together. And we can actually put our point on that. And then now we can rotate around that point in space. So that's a little bit of a way to get around that. You might also notice that I have snapping going there. So if I turn it off, let's see, do I have it on still? Maybe I do. Let's see, hold on. Switch it to rotation. So I can turn on snapping. Same thing as the measuring tape. I can click on the A button and it turns white. And now I can snap to I think it's 5-degree increments. So now I have like a specific increments that I can rotate things. Anyway, so those are great ways of precisely moving and measuring things. But there's no way in Gravity Sketch to actually input values and to sort of get a specific radii. I mean, you can measure it out and get close maybe if you really spent the time. But Gravity Sketch just isn't really for that. It's for to just get your ideas out of your mind and get it out into 3D as quickly as possible without getting in your way. But we still have these levels of precision so that if you want to make something that you really want to use and say, hey, like, this thing I'm making is, it's really going to be, used for a real part, or I want it to go down the pipeline to a more refined model. And you want to know specific diameters and lengths and all of that, you can do some of that. So we've already got a whole bunch of questions I just see now in the chat. So let's see if we can address some of these things. Let me go ahead and unpin this, get it better. So I'm right now I'm pinning the video so I can see all your comments while I'm in VR. Let's see. This ultra-wide desktop screen does not help in moving this around. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we've got some questions. Okay, Oculus Quest 2, there is no shadow projection. Do you plan to include shadow projection in the future? That is really a performance limitation from the Quest. So as far as I know, unless there's some sort of software optimization to the Quest, or if there is a new headset that comes out that's more powerful, there won't be shadows, I don't believe, in Gravity Sketch. I think that really is a performance thing. It's to keep the headset from chugging and from getting all glitchy, because that's the main thing. Is we want Gravity Sketch, essentially the essentials of Gravity Sketch, to run on Quest without too little frame rate, because that can cause some motion sickness. So I don't believe so, unless there's a new headset that comes out that's more powerful. Is there a way to accurately resize the mannequin reference models to, for example, 180 centimeters tall as opposed to the default 170? Then have this as a saved default. There's not really a function for that, but there's ways to do it. So you could always, the solution to this types of thing, to defaults and to presets and all these types of things, are saving sketches with these things in them, and then opening those sketches, and then once you've used them for what you want to use them for, obviously save them as a different name, so it's a new sketch. But I would say for the mannequin, bringing it in your scene, and it's 170 centimeters tall, and you said 180. So if we go to readout unit metric, click this point, it's like 170 or whatever. Maybe didn't click it exactly right, but we want to get it up to, actually I should have measured out 180. So if I go from this dot to 180, and I want to scale it up to that. So now it's roughly scaled to 180 now. I would just save this sketch and say, and just name it, 180 mannequin or 180 centimeter mannequin. And that way, and actually what you could also do, if you wanted to just have this model, you don't want to save the sketch, you could, I believe, save this as a prefab too. So you can just grab this and then place in as a prefab. Let's see. Oh, we drop it in. Okay, never mind. Drop not this box in here. So you go to the import models, and then you grab your mannequin and you drop it here to make it a prefab. And then here you could call it 180 centimeter mannequin. And then you would have that mannequin in your prefabs. So if you go to like open another sketch or another, you start another session, another sketch, you can actually navigate and you would find it in here. You would find your, 180 centimeter mannequin in here, and you'd be able to bring it in. And it would have I believe it would have all the joints and everything still too. So it doesn't save it as like a OBJ or anything. So it's actually still usable. That's how I would do that. It's a little bit of a workaround, but it's actually pretty simple. Let's look at some of the other comments here. Just going down through these. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of comments I won't be able to get to, but we're going to try and answer all your questions. And feel free to, if you didn't get your question asked and you really want to know the answer, wasn't able to get to it, add it in the comments too. We'll be answering the comments as well. Let's see. Can the measured tape snap exactly to the endpoints of a line or surface instead of the grid? Let's see. So snapping with the tape tool, there's not really a way to snap to things or to points right now, but that would be excellent. I think that's a great idea. And because right now, we do have snapping for like other objects. So if I turn on snapping and I have this other object and I want to snap this point to this point, I can actually like start taking these points and snapping to this stroke. So actually it would be nice to have, that's maybe an idea for the product team. If we could have a snap functionality where you snap to points on geometry in the scene, that would probably be pretty helpful. So the answer is no, but great idea. Is there any trick to work around from full fat one? Is there any trick or workaround to find an axis of a circle, tube, pipe, or revolve surface? Yes, there is. So if we go to the revolve tool, let's just do a revolve. Now, key thing here is it needs to be a revolved object. I don't know why these are tightened at all. And then say, hey, we go over here, we make some more. We have a couple more rotated objects. And then you realize, oh shoot, I want to go back and I want to edit, I want to use this axis again. And I try and line it up and it's not quite lined up, exactly. All you got to do is you got to touch the object, the revolved object, and then essentially by lightly, I'm going to move this out of the way, by lightly squeezing the left trigger, I'm just touching. I'm not even grabbing it. I'm just touching it, I just touch it, and by lightly squeezing the trigger, let's see, it's popping up this little axis here, which it's not actually lining up, which is kind of annoying. It's supposed to be. I don't actually know why it's not doing it. Let's see. Okay, it's did it for this one. I'm not sure why I didn't do it for these, but that's how it works. Okay, now it's doing it. Okay, it must be working now. Okay, so essentially you touch the revolve, and if you just lightly squeeze the trigger, it will snap the axis to that original axis, and I can continue making more revolves that are locked to that original axis. So very, very useful. And so I can, if I want to do a revolved stroke, it also saves that axis, as well. And I can, go around that as well. So that's a way to get back to your original axis that you created for things. Works for revolved objects only. When the measurement line is set, can I zoom in and attach, move the endpoints to exact points, snapped into the surface or end of a line to make it perfectly exact when the measurement line is exact points? I don't think so on that. So the question was from Sarah Path, when the measurement line is set, can I zoom in and attach and move the line? Basically, you're asking if you can edit the, so if you drew like a, something out from the measurement tool, can I now go in and grab this point out of the way? The answer is no. So it's just floating there in space, and as soon as you draw another one, it disappears. But you can draw multiple. So that is nice. So if I take the measurement tool, I extend it out, I can draw multiple points, which is nice. But I can't go and edit them, which again, I think that would be nice. I think we should be able to edit them. It's a little bit of a tricky thing when you have measurements in the space. I don't know how that works from the product side of things. From the development side, if these just remain in your scene, if that's kind of makes things heavy, if you just have all these measurements floating around. But I thought it would be nice, just as a thought for myself, to have these continually floating around so you can make adjustments to it. Maybe that's an evolved version of the measuring tape tool. Let's see here. I'm going to skip down. Full Fat 1, actually, can you go into more details of the tool belt? That looks really good. Sure, just ask me what kind of questions do you have about the tool belt? I can certainly go through each tool. Absolutely. So why don't we just do that really quick? So there's been some questions in the past on what some of these tools are. And these are probably going to evolve and change as time goes on. But the tool belt, the whole idea behind the tool belt is to just give more, I guess, tools at your disposal. So that's really what it is. So what this tool is, a lot of people don't know what this is, but essentially this is the normals tool. So this is really useful for like surfaces. So if I could show an example, sometimes when you create a sub D surface, change the color, and you how you normally make surfaces in Gravity Sketch. You pull it out like this. You take your two triggers, you pull it out, and you make this beautiful ribbony surface. But sometimes when you do that and you're like pulling something out and you want to connect it and you want to make it into an actual thing, let's see if we can close it up. Connect the dots. And then maybe add one more dot there, subdivision. And we have like an object that's like becoming a closed thing. Finish closing it. And we're like, cool. We got a closed object. And then it looks good. It looks fine. But when you go and bring it into Blender or Maya, or or some other program like that, you'll notice that it starts to look weird, like it starts to render weird, or it looks like it's inside out. That's because when you drew it, the normals were on one side, and the outside, quote unquote, the outside of the surface was actually inside, and you kind of folded everything in, basically, if that makes any sense. And so in order to mitigate that, so we have this tool. So you can see that that's actually what we did. So if only when you grab it will it actually display. So right now it looks like we're looking inside of this closed form that we made. That means the normals are reversed, and we need to reverse it so that when we bring it into another program, it will be displayed correctly. So we just take the normals tool, we touch it to it, turns red, and we just click with our trigger and it reverses it. This is also easily seen here when we grab it and we look at the ribbon tool. You can see how the normals on one side are solid and on the other side they're transparent. So that you can see basically how they are. And this is a standard across all 3D. This is how the computer knows and software knows what side is inside and what side is outside. It especially with something that has no thickness. Even though we're displaying this technically, mathematically has no thickness. So this is a really easy tool to reverse the normals. And then we already went over the move tool. So this easily moves things across axes, the precision move tool, planes and axes, as well as rotating things. This tool is not used very much, I would imagine. But essentially this is like a randomizer. So if you're in a scene and you have like a bunch of objects, I'm just going to add a few things in here, like a surface, maybe like a few volumes. And I just want to mix these up and maybe set dress a little bit. Maybe it's some rocks. So how about that? Like we have like a few rocks in our scene, and we have like an assortment of rocks here. And we want to sort of randomize these. So we've got, make a duplicate of these. Just take this tool and squeeze the trigger, and it will randomize the location of these objects. Be careful with this tool because it can really mess things up if you have a lot of detail, a lot of parts. So only use it if you really are intending to use it. But that's essentially what it does. It randomizes the locations of things. It's kind of a fun tool. Here we have the banana tool, which is the teleport tool. Essentially, anywhere on the scene, you can teleport. If you touch it near an object, you can teleport to that object, or it just defaults to the VR scene floor, and you can teleport your scene like you're walking around. Next, we have the eyedropper. I guess it takes the color. So if we touch it to an object with certain material or color, we can take from that, click our index finger trigger, and now we've got that color loaded. And then all we got to do is take our brush, touch it, and we can paint other objects with that color. So it's a way to quickly paint things with color in our scene. I think eventually this might be simplified as well. And then of course we have our tape measure tool, which is what we've been talking about. Let's check some comments. Let's see. It would be really amazing to see a few tutorials in the future that really use those two-belt tools to make a really precise model that can be used for 3D printing and matches required sizes exactly. Yeah, totally agree. I think that's something that that we should do. I think that's something we've talked about as well. So we do have a fun little video on our TikTok taking something that was made in Gravity Sketch and then we 3D print it. But something that's maybe a little more precise, has measurements, would be really cool for sure. Let's see. Just going through some of your comments here. Where should I write to product team to suggest allowing multiple measurement lines in parallel? Pulling the points around to adjust what they measure, and 3, make them snap to geometry. And that's from Sarapath. So you're asking where to talk to product team. Yeah, so product team, our team of engineers, mathematicians really check our Discord a lot. They're pretty active on there. If you can join our Discord, which I'll have a link to the video after this video is over to that. Join our Discord, and there's several channels on there. The team really looks at that a lot, and so put any of your recommendations, your pieces of feedback, any issues that you're having, put it there as well. It's definitely a place that engineers go look at. So highly recommend that. Also, just saying it. So I definitely look out for feedback like that as well. So writing it on the chat here. Also, I would say write that in the comments too of this video so I can copy and paste it and send it over. And commenting our Instagram posts with things, DMing us, sending us feedback. We're always very sensitive to feedback coming in. We really look at that. So yeah, just send it to us anyway, either through DM, comments, Discord. Great place. I will say Discord is where our engineers actually look a lot. So that's the reason why I mentioned Discord, is because they're on there. Would it be possible for Gravity Sketch to export double-sided surfaces, even though there is no thickness, or is there a reason this is bad? You can export double, actually. I believe so. So if you just go to the export menu and run OBJ, let's see. Yeah, so we can actually select the double option in the export menu there. So for an OBJ, I think it works for FBX too. FBX is currently not supported, by the way, on Quest. So if you're using Quest, I don't believe you have FBX available on Quest. But for OBJ, if you go to the advanced options, you can select double-sided for rendering. So that little example that we did with switching the normals, I don't know if that actually matters when you export as double at that point, but if you're exporting as single, it definitely matters. You'll also notice this little box here too for the export menu. You can see the full dimensions. It'll give you the full dimensions of your entire sketch, and will say how much space you're taking up, just volume wise. You can actually edit this, so you can, as you can see here, if I touch to these values, I can scale this entire scene. So if I go from 130 to say 100, and I click the check mark, it will scale everything down by that measurement in the scene. So that's a really, really useful sort of kind of hidden function that you can scale things down by measurement. Now, the limitation is it only works for the entire scene, so you can't do that with a specific object. So I can't select this object and then have a box around it, scale it down to a specific scale. It only works for the entire scene. But maybe that's something that again can work in the future, where we have the ability to scale down individual objects. Okay, looking through a few more. Let's see here. Trying to replicate a fully grown bamboo stem. I have been trying to replicate and reduce each bamboo section as it grows. To replicate a natural look, please advise. It's very specific. I'm wondering, so you have a piece of bamboo you're making. Let This might be a quick thing, but I believe bamboo kind of looks, so if we just take some of these points here, it's got kind of this, this dip to it, and all right, so we got our bamboo here. If we duplicate this, we can take these points. Here's an interesting thing. We can actually use our soft select sphere. I wonder if this would work well. Could work. Sort of works. So let me okay, change this to like a color that I can see better. So you can take like the soft select sphere, and how you use that is you essentially take your selection sphere and you push up and down the joystick, right, to grow it. But if you grab the grip trigger and then you pull down, you actually pull down a second sphere, and this is like that's actually the move, and then the outer sphere becomes like a soft selection. So points that are towards the outside of the sphere are affected less. So what we can do is we can sort of pull things down a little bit and by hand kind of shorten it. And that's how I would do it, is I would do it like that, and then probably manually do it. I would say to get the natural look as you're describing, I would say the best way is to just go in and individually edit it so that it looks like so. That's probably the best way to approach that. Let's see. Box selection select would be useful. Yes, box selection would be great. I think a lot of people ask about how to select multiple things instead of a sphere. So definitely something we're looking at. Let's see. To work, I move controllers in line, but I often have trouble getting constrained to move to work. This is from Brett Patterson. I move controllers in line, but really hard to find the point where it comes active. What am I doing wrong? So Brett, I'll say two things. One, I'll show you a tip on how to maybe get better with doing it. And then two, I will show you an alternative as well. And this might be a few extra steps, but basically, if we have our object and we want to move it along an axis, you're talking about this, basically, where you line the controllers, you move it, on these different axes. I've been doing this so much, I just feel like I've really gotten the hang of lining my controllers up. I've even gotten to the point where I can like barely, line them up and it works. So some people, we've gotten feedback from people saying they really find themselves hunting a lot, in the scene to get the alignment and all that. How the logic behind how the controller alignment works for the precision move is the object you're touching. So you're touching the object. That's how you activate it. So you can't put the controllers together and get it to go because you're not touching anything. You're not moving anything or touching anything to move. So you need to actually be touching an object. And then the other controller, your left controller, or if you're right-handed and your controllers are switched, like mine's, I'm a righty, so everything's aligned to that. But it's the opposite. So if my controller's here, it's the same thing. So your opposite hand needs to be behind controller, not above. Well, I guess above works too, but it gets a little weird. Like it's really, I find putting it above makes it weird. I find that putting it below the dominant hand. Makes it a lot more accessible. So that's what I usually do. That's one pointer, because that's something we notice with someone. Putting it below, and that's it. So just, and it needs to be just kind of near. Like, see how I'm waving it around? Like, it just doesn't need to be directly below it. Like, I'm just kind of waving it around. And then it also works too in the other axis. So I can move it along this gray axis too. So it'll snap to those axes, right? Like that. That's the way, that's how I would sort of give you the tip on how to do it. Once you get the hang of it, it's like, I mean, super easy. I've just been doing this a while now. But that's one thing I would say is I've been doing it below for a long time, but we've heard from people that they do it from above, and that can actually get in the way of some things, some other features and doing certain things. I recommend putting the less dominant controller underneath. I think that works a lot better, and for most situations. So I hope that answers your question. The second thing I was going to say is using the tool belt. So pulling out the tool belt and using the precision move tool, touching your object and moving along that axis. You can just select the axis that you'd like to move it, or you can select a plane as well that you want to move it along and just lock it to that plane. So that's what I would say for precision moving. Let's see. Would be good if by aligning the controllers together, you could get a motion feedback on the controllers. Yeah, that would be pretty cool too, I think. Just something that's a little bit more sort of giving you some tactile feedback that you're moving something. I just find it hard. Sometimes I rotate the scene to get better access. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. But I would say overall, this form, this motion, we've been having feedback from the community that this, can be straining on shoulders, depending on if you have something really high and you're just like up here. Again, you can just zoom in, and just do it at a really close proximity as well. But, it just can be straining, especially if you want to move something really far. And so having another way to do it without using two hands might be beneficial. That's something that we're looking at and definitely open to feedback on. So this is an ever-changing, evolving program. So having thoughts and feedback like that really helps us out and gives us insight as to what can be improved and be better. So I'm just really trying to show you tips on how to maybe do it a little bit easier for the time being, until that becomes something that's a little bit more refined. And so I hope that helps. The more you do it, I would also practice it. Just draw an object and just do it. Just move it around, see if you can get better at it. If it's just not quite working for you, because it really does work. Like when it does what it's supposed to do, I think it's just a matter of getting the technique down. As you can see, I'm moving my controller kind of, there's a lot of play in my controller, and I'm still getting the alignment. So if you don't want to use that, I would say use the precision move tool from the tool belt as well. And that's actually a nice way to have like a tool tip and actually move things around. And the added benefit of, oh, you know what? That is crazy. I didn't even know that. I just discovered this. That must be new. Okay, new thing, everyone. you can move the point in space. So very cool. So, all right, this is kind of a big thing. This is pretty cool. Let's see. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay. All right, I kind of misled people a little bit in the beginning, saying you couldn't put the point in space and move the object. That is not true. Check this out. This must be new. So if you take your tool and you touch it to your object, you'll see this cube here with the precision move. If you move that now, see, now we've already selected our object that we want to move. So now we can just move this anywhere. So say like I want to move it, I want the point to be here. Well, it's not really going to change how it affects our object here because we're just still moving it along an axis. But say you're using the rotate tool and you want to rotate this object, along this point here. Well, now we can rotate that object at that spot. So that's really awesome. Let's see, looking through some of your questions. Is scaling coming with the Gizmo tool? That is something that we've talked about for sure. Scaling would be great. I think that might be a next iteration, just scaling. And yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing. I think it'd be as simple as just adding another icon in here and just being able to scale an object. So I think that might be an idea for the product team. Oh, thank you for the kind words, Timo. I just want to say that I love your community work. You're always so responsive, user-centered, open for feedback. Makes me love the product even more. Thank you so much for the kind words. We really do try and listen to all the feedback and answer your questions. Yeah, so thank you for that feedback. It's good to know that that we're doing okay with all of that. Hey James, how you doing? Yeah, I guess someone did hear us chatting. I'm sure this will all be covered even again once we talk tomorrow. We'll be having an interview with James tomorrow actually, and he'll be going through his process on creating a car in Gravity Sketch, his workflow for designing and creating vehicles in Gravity Sketch. So if you haven't seen his work, go check him out. But we'll be diving into his process tomorrow as well. Outlier, big question from Outlier. How hard would it be to add Boolean functions? This is probably like one of the biggest questions we've gotten, long-standing question that we've gotten. If you don't know what Booleans are, it's kind of hard to do. I can't really demonstrate it in Gravity Sketch because you can't do it. But if I could illustrate it, essentially, you have an object here, and you want to cut out of this volume. And so typically what a Boolean is it's not even always cutting. It's sometimes joining things or doing another version, or an intersection. But basically, you want to cut it out with this object. So this is like the cutter, and so you would intersect it, and then it would cut out of this volume, that shape, and then this would disappear, and you would be left with an empty, or not empty, but you would be left with a cutout right here. So that works, and that's like kind of a standard thing in a lot of 3D software. Works in parametric modeling, Fusion 360, Blender, etc. But in Gravity Sketch, from what I've heard, I don't believe it's impossible. It's just very complex and quite demanding from the processor, from the system, and so it's just going to be a matter of time of dedicating time to it, figuring out the calculation behind it. Even desktop computers on fully professional programs like Blender and Maya and Fusion sometimes have issues doing Booleans. So to have it working in VR and even on Quest, I think even if we came out with that feature, I don't know if it would even be available on Quest unless there was a much more powerful mobile headset that came out and down the line. But Booleans is something that we want to bring to Gravity Sketch. It's just going to require time and essentially just time basically on getting it to work properly. So it is coming. There's just no defined date timeline on that, but we do have the desire to bring that to Gravity Sketch because we also agree it would be a super powerful function and feature. Because mostly what you make in Gravity Sketch is additive, right? You add things, build, but sometimes you want to take away, you want to remove things, you want to cut out of shapes, as well as, trimming things. So we've had questions on trimming, which is a similar, kind of workflow. So it's coming. Don't know when, but we want to do it. That's kind of the short answer there. Let's see. Let's see. Just looking through your questions. How are you viewing the YouTube chat? It's a good question. Is there a community Discord? So yeah, I'm looking at the YouTube chat right now. Basically, if you're using, this is a cool little tip. If you're using the Oculus Rift specifically, I also believe Vive has this software as well, Steam, or the Steam VR software has this. But basically, you can, and I can't really show you because this part just isn't mirrored on the display. But if you click your home button, you'll see virtual desktop. That's what it's called. If you click that, you'll see the monitors that you have available to you that your computer's using. You just pick one of those. I have 2 going. I picked the one that I have YouTube up on right now, and it pops up in my VR scene. So I'm actually looking at it right now, even though you can't see it. And I can move it around in the VR space. And then there's this little pin icon, and I can just pin that. And then when I close the home menu, I'm now back in Gravity Sketch doing stuff, and all I got to do is look up and I can see the chat going. I can't scroll. I have to go and open up the menu again to actually scroll. But that's actually how I'm viewing everything. It's really, really helpful for stuff like this. Let's see. Yes. So could they cheat the Boolean function like trim away for display only and group the part that's intersecting with the main part, or is this also real hard? That's a great question. I don't know if I can answer that because I actually just don't know. I did wonder something along those lines, if there's a way to sort of fake a Boolean operation in Gravity Sketch for display purposes without it actually doing it physically, geometry-wise. But the only problem is if you have a bunch of Booleans and you have a bunch of things cut up and the Boolean is really integral to your design, it might become an issue when you want to export, because eventually you're going to have to calculate it. And it might be something that happens at the export menu. Maybe it calculates all your Booleans, but then you could run into issues like, your design just, maybe if the execution doesn't work, then your whole design is useless because you've built this whole thing and the Booleans don't work and you didn't find out to the end. So I feel like that's a bit of a tricky thing. I think it's best if Booleans just flat out work in Gravity Sketch. Especially if you want to do Booleans upon Booleans. And what that would mean is, if I had this blue object and I wanted to use this green object to cut out of it, but then out of that cutout, I want to use another object to cut out of that cut, you can see how Booleans can start layering over top of each other, and that just won't work unless Booleans really work in Gravity Sketch. But anyway, it's something we want to do for sure. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, please continue asking some of your questions, things you've been wondering about. We're going to be doing this for, I guess we've been going for almost an hour now. That's kind of how we're trying to do this, but I'm just going to scroll back up, see if I missed any questions. Let's see here. Okay, Marco Polo, you're asking if you can use co-op mode or is it just for developers? So you're probably asking about co-creation, which basically gives you the ability to be in a sketch space like this in Gravity Sketch, and then other people with Gravity Sketch and headsets, remotely, anywhere in the world, can join you in the same space and edit the same geometry. So I can be here, my colleague Emil could be here, working in the same space and doing things. We could be designing the same vehicle, building the same thing, or doing things separately. It's how we do our co-creation sessions on our live sketches, some of our live interviews. where we jump into Gravity Sketch. That's co-creation. That will be coming to individuals in the future. That's something we want to definitely do. Again, there's no definite date on that. It's a desire of ours to bring some form of co-creation to the community. But for now, it's only for businesses and for educational institutions at this time. But eventually, we do want to bring it to the community because we just really think that if a lot of people out there have access to it, the creativity and the possibilities exponentially increase. So, yeah, it would be super awesome to have that in the community. Let's see. Let's see here. Just looking through some of your questions. Let's go back to the bottom, see if there's anything. How do you copy? This is a great question. How do you copy art in one Gravity Sketch file into another? I'm going to answer that question, and I'm going to actually show you all another cool trick recently that you may not know about, and maybe we'll wrap it up there because that'll be it's already about an hour. But how do you copy art in one Gravity Sketch file into another? So that's a great question. So say I like this. Like this whole scene is like, yes, this is what I want. I want to save this, and this will go great in my other sketch that I'm working on. So maybe you're working on a much larger project, and why don't I just delete these? Say like I made these bamboo stacks, and I'm like, basically just working on some bamboo, and I'm like, all right, this will be a great asset to bring it to another scene. Or you say, I'm going to be using bamboo a lot in my projects, so I want to save this bamboo file so that I can bring bamboo into other Gravity Sketch files. All you got to do is, this goes back to the mannequin technique that I showed earlier, but in case you missed it, you just go to the prefabs menu here, and you have your import models menu open. You select everything, grab everything you want, and then you drop it into this prefab folder. It says make a prefab, and then you just name it. I'm going to call it bamboo. Check. Now we've got bamboo in there. And actually, we can navigate to bamboo now and see we've got it now in our prefabs. We can just grab it. We can either drop it in the preview for import, and it looks like it's really small right now or something, which is probably why I'm not seeing it. Or maybe, no, it's actually coming in at the exact spot because it saved the location in which I saved it. So it's actually appearing like literally right here. So I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to bring it in. So I can just pull it into my scene. Now I have my bamboo again. Now, something to note is that when you do this, if the thing you're making a prefab had mirroring to it or anything, or if it was like a mirrored object, like this is a mirrored thing right now, you'll see that this is just one big group, right? I can break this group by clicking the purple break button. These are all individual pieces. So the break, the mirroring is broken once you've saved a prefab. So you will not have mirroring, but I can edit this. So I do have all the points. I can still edit this thing and turn it into something completely else. And so it's basically still editable in Gravity Sketch. It's still a Gravity Sketch file. You just lose the mirroring. So that's just something to be aware of, is you won't have that. But yeah, it's a really great way. So if you find yourself like creating multiple, like you're using the same type of model a lot, and you say, hey, I just want to make this once and I'll use it and over again, just start a file, create it in Gravity Sketch, save it as a prefab. Like we said, we just grab the object, save it, drop it in the prefab folder, name it. Then you've got it in your folders, and you can bring it into any other sketch. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. You're not going to see this part, but let's go to our sailboat sketch that we did with Ziga. And I would say, hey, there's some, we need some bamboo in here. So we go over to our bamboo and we select that and we bring it into our scene. So now we've got the bamboo that we made in our um, boat scene here. Maybe we just lay it on the side. We've salvaged some bamboo that was laying around in the ocean or something. And so now we got some bamboo there stacked on the side of the boat. So that's how you can bring sketches into other sketches, basically. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad that answered your question. Okay, cool little trick to show you all. And then we'll wrap it up, I think. So I'm trying to think of an example. I don't think it would work in this scenario. Maybe it would. You know what? Yeah, this would be cool. I'll show you a couple ways to do this. So let's make a bolt. So say we've got, we go to our revolve here, and then I'm going to click, there's a couple cool things I'll show you here. So we select the subdivision object. So this means now any of these primitives we bring into the scene, they're going to be subdivision. And then I'm going to turn on this customize primitive option. That means when I draw the object, I'll be able to actually select the amount of subdivisions that it has. So I want it to be a hexagonal shape. I think that's a hexagon, right? Yeah. And so let's see. Basically, I'm trying to make a bolt. And so I'm going to, get rid of those. And so now we've got our bolt here. And then what we want to do is add, let's see. I'm trying to see how I want subdivisions there. Okay, just for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna do, like, say this is the bolt we want. It's got like a lot of detail, and it's just really heavy, right? I'm gonna smooth that. And we're going to group it together. Going to make it like a silvery, a dark color maybe. And then maybe even it's like, maybe it's even got like a little bit of a, I'm just doing this really fast. It's got an extra detail there. Like a little rubber washer or something like that. So we got this super detailed bolt that we want to use, and we're going to be using this. Say we want to use this bolt like everywhere on this ship, and we want to stamp it everywhere and do everything, but maybe we don't need that bolt to be geometry. Maybe you just need it visually represented in our scene. So what we can do is we can go to our screenshot menu. So I go to take a screenshot. I turn on transparent background. So now any picture I take, it'll be a transparent background. And I turn on instant photo. What this will do is it will give me an instant photo in my scene of this object. So I take a photo, bam. I now have a picture of the bolt in my scene. And so I can take this photo and I can duplicate it around. Oh wait, I think I have to exit. Yeah, I have to exit from the screenshot menu. So now I can duplicate this bolt picture anywhere and stamp it around. So this is a super, super useful feature, and there's no load on your scene because it's just an image. So it's called Instant Photo, and you can, anything you can take a picture of anything, and it'll be instant. So now this is like a flat 2D image. This is also pretty cool for doing plants with. If we take the ink tool here and make it like a green color, go like that, and we make some blades of some sort of breed plant here. Strokes in Gravity Sketch can be pretty heavy, especially if you start duplicating a lot of them around and you have a lot of them. They can be pretty heavy in your scene. So a way to lighten it up is to use the Instant Photo option. So we're just going to take this and we're going to go to our photo, zoom out just a little bit. Now we've got a photo, flat image of our plants here. And now we can add just like a bunch of them. And now we've got this effect without taking any more processing power from our scene. So that's a really cool little trick to use. Multiple copies of objects along a path. Yes, actually, that's a great one too. We can show that. This is a little tip that we put on our Instagram, but I can show it again here. So to do arrays, this is actually a really cool thing to see with the ink tool. So if I draw like the ink tool here, I simplify it, and I do something like a curve like this, and then I want to duplicate it. So when you duplicate something along the axis, you can, it snaps to the next spot. And all I got to do is just hold down the index finger trigger, and it will extend, delete that one. It will extend the duplicate out so you can do it automatically, so you don't have to click it each time. I'm going to group this together. Actually, I don't know if this will work grouped. Maybe it will still. Yeah, it will. So, okay, so this is really cool. So you can actually edit multiple individual objects at the same time in edit mode. So if I select this whole thing and I hold, so if I just click edit mode, I'll just be able to edit one of these, right? But if I select everything and I hold down the edit mode button, I get this little menu here and I have a few more options. I can turn it off, whether it's mirrored. I can also unify the mirror so I can actually mirror all of these objects at the same time, which is really helpful. But I can also edit them all at the same time now, so they're all in edit mode. And what's cool is I can do that soft select feature like I mentioned earlier, and I can grab all these and I can pull them all around and manipulate them at varying degrees of manipulation. And I can make some really kind of complex forms and get pretty wild with it. And so as you can see, we've got something pretty interesting here. This works with anything that's in edit mode. So if I take like a primitive, and I'm trying to remember what I did it with. It looks pretty cool with the soft cube tool. We take the soft cube and we duplicate it out like that. Take it, hold down the edit mode button, get our soft select, and now we can edit it at varying degrees. And as I twist and tilt my controller, you can get all kinds of really crazy shapes. So if I move it back, I'm getting thick to thin. If I twist it down, I'm getting tall to short, wide to thin. So just like so many different ways of manipulating it. And it's all depending on where you even grab it. So if you grab it at a different spot next time, it'll be changed. It'll be even a different effect. So this is a really, really fun thing to try if you're just trying to do some creative, wild stuff. And then, yeah. And then if you're saying how to group as a sky, just grab everything. So grow the selection sphere, grab it, and then click the purple button to group it. Now it's grouped. And if I break it, if I want to break the group, just click that again. It's broken. Now it's individual pieces. And I can do whatever I want with it. Pierre Fontaine, you're asking if the array can be done along a circular path rather than along an axis. No, there's no circular arrays. There are what is it called? Radial symmetry for creating things, but there's no radial like arrays, I guess. So if you go to the stroke, all you got to do is smooth this polar symmetry slider up and down. This is basically how many divisions there are or how many multiples there are. And it's actually a little indicator up here on the top showing you. So if you do like 7, we just pick our axes and we've got that. And if you go into edit mode, we just edit one of them. We can change all of them. That's the only radial sort of repetitiveness going on in Gravity Sketch. But maybe some radial arrays can come in the future. But with that, I thank you all for joining, and I think we really addressed a lot of things, answered a lot of questions. We do want to do more of these Ask Me Anything, so stay tuned for the next one. And we're trying to answer any questions and concerns and deal with everything. I think we'll do an Ask Me Anything for iPad as well. That's pretty new, and I think people are getting pretty, they're getting more familiar with it. But I think it really would be useful. So thank you all for joining. A lot of really, really great questions during the live, and really appreciate your feedback and your thoughts. So thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye now.